is 10 o'clock, so we are going to go ahead and get started. To start with, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Beth Wooster. I am the ESCA Federal Programs Administrator, and I would like to welcome you to today's session on the ARP ESSER 3 application for the second part. A few housekeeping pieces. First of all, we love to see your faces. So if you would like to turn on your video, it helps us so we aren't just talking to a black screen. So that would be great. Also, all participants are muted upon entering. So you won't be able to say anything until the end. At the end, we will make it so that you can unmute yourself to ask questions. We're also going to ask that you, if you have questions during the presentation, just go ahead and type them in the chat. We will be monitoring that, and several people on the federal programs team are on this call. So we will all try to answer you as the chats are coming in, the questions are coming in, we will try to get those answered. Also wanted to let you know, all of the materials will be posted on the federal programs website. We are going to record all three of these sessions, and we will post one of the three sessions and these slides. And then also we've been keeping the questions that are asked. We will do another FAQ for the second part of the grant. So we will post those on the website probably after Monday. So just wanted to let you know that. All right, we're going to, first I'm going to introduce each of, or have the team introduce themselves and let you know which ESUs they will be reviewing for this ARP ESSER 3 grant. We're going to go over the parts of the grant. We have some what if scenarios, and then some general information or resources, and then at the end, time for questions and answers. And we're going to start out. I'm going to have Dottie introduce herself first.
Welcome. Glad you're here this morning. I am Dottie Hoisman. I am on the federal programs team, and I'll be reviewing ESSER grants for ESU 1, ESU 3, ESU 6, and 11. So I look forward to working with you guys.
All right, Ken.
I'm Ken Howard. I will be working with ESU number 2. I am the new state homeless liaison.
All right, Allison.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Allison Olson. I will be reviewing the grants for ESU 4.
And just so you see, her name is, it's Allison Olson is Dembesti now. So if you see that, it's the same person. Benjamin.
Hi, my name's Benjamin Zink. I work with Title I Part C Migrant Education, and I'll be working with ESU 5 districts.
All right, Pat.
Good morning. Happy to be here and work with ESU 7 and ESU 10.
Thank you. Jim.
Good morning, everybody. I will be working with ESU 8, 9, and 13 for this grant.
Okay, Ann.
Morning, I'm Ann Hubble, and I'll be working with ESU 15 and 17.
Okay, Sue.
Good morning, Sue Henry. I work with Benjamin with the Title I C Migrant Education Program, and I will be reviewing ESU 16 grants.
Okay, and Kirk.
Good morning. My assignment is ESU 18 and ESU 19. Thank you.
Okay. And then I am the final reviewer for all the grants. So just so you know, I'll get to see all of them. All right. So just so you know, we are going to have you drop to that 2021 year again. Even though when you first get into GMS, it's going to advance to the 2022 year, you need to go back to 2021 to complete this grant. And it's actually not going to be a new grant, you're just finishing this grant. So you're going to actually be creating an amendment. So you'll want to go find the ESSER 3 grant, which is circled over here on the left, and then click the amend button. And then that will open it right up to where you will be making the changes. All right, as soon as you open up that amendment, because it's an amendment, you're going to have to go to the page lock control button, which we've got the number 1 listed over here. And then the next thing you'll need to do is you'll need to go to the amendment description. And we have given exactly what you need to type in there. Just write amendment to complete the full application. When you started, you just did the contacts, the assurances, and that's it. So now you're completing the rest of the application. All right. Then we want you to double check the contact information if anything has changed, because we have had some SOUPs change. So if that authorized representative has changed, you need to update that. Also the fiscal contact. And then if you have somebody else that we should be contacting rather than the SOUP, if the grant needs to be returned or something, be sure that you check that box and fill in who the person is that we should contact. We want to be sure that we are sending it to the correct person, or if we have questions on it, that we're contacting the right person.
Okay, so now that you've created the amendment, you really are ready to start working on the grant. And let me just share with you that what's new in the grant. So the program, there's really 4 tabs that are new or added now that you need to complete. The first one is the program information page, and we'll talk a little bit about the allowable uses in just a bit. And then also the intent and purpose questions. That's another tab underneath program information. There's also the staff and equipment page. So we'll talk a little bit about the capital assets pre-approval form and submission, which is a little bit new if you're doing a capital assets project. You'll also have to complete the budget page. And again, we'll talk more about that just briefly, but most of you are very familiar with the budget page because you do that on all of the grants. And then the GEPA. The GEPA statement is, you can find a sample at our NDE website. So I would strongly suggest that you go to that, to the federal program site, take a look at that and adapt that to meet your needs for your district. And really important, and Beth will state this again later as well, that this is the ARP ESSER 3. So your GEPA statement needs to, at minimum, say ESSER 3. It can say ARP ESSER 3 or ESSER 3. Please don't use the word CARES or CRRSA, because those are really ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 funds. Back when we first got the CARES money, we just called it CARES because we didn't realize there would be an ESSER 1 and a 2 and a 3. So just be very, very particular. We have to make sure that it says what you're doing with your ARP ESSER 3 dollars. Again, ESSER $3. And we have no inkling that an ESSER 4 is coming. So just keep that in mind as you're thinking about how to spend these funds. Okay, so on the program information page, the allowable uses page, I said to you earlier that there's 17. There are 17 listed. However, for this grant, the federal government has taken away number 4, which is providing principals and other school leaders with the resources necessary to address the needs of their individual schools. That is not an option to use these dollars for. So you'll see that it's still on the grant, but if you go to check it or you go to fill in the text box, you can't do either or. So that is not appropriate. So you will see that that's gone. There is, however, a new allowable use, and that's number 17. And it really talks about how you're working with your any strategies or implementing things with your CDC and any guidance you're doing in regards to reopening. So that is a new allowable use. So otherwise, they're all the same from ESSER 2. So ESSER 2 to ESSER 3 is identical, except for 4 is gone and 17 is added. Okay, the next part is program information allowable uses page. So that's truly the piece where when you're looking at those numbers, here's what you need to do. Don't restate what's already there. So if it says that you can, we're going to provide mental health services to kids. Okay, if you're going to do that, be specific. Let a reviewer know. What does that look like? We're going to have more guidance counselor time. We're going to buy curriculum for kids. What are the steps that you're going to take? So be very specific in regards to that. If you're purchasing technology, what technology are you purchasing? How does that relate to what you're doing with kids, possibly in the area of learning loss? And so just a reminder, if you check a box on that allowable use page, you must also type in the text box. And if you need to undo something, so it's like, oh, I don't really want allowable use number 5, you need to delete what's in the text box and then uncheck it. Otherwise, you're going to throw an error in the system. And then the other thing to remember is if you choose numbers, let's say 7, 8, 9, and 13 on the allowable uses page, you'll want to make sure that you use 7, 8, 9, and 13 and budget dollars for them on the budget page. And you should also get an error for that if you don't do it correctly. Okay, so the program information, intent, and purpose pages, you're going to see there's a lot more questions. One of the reasons there's a lot more question is because we have a lot more federal requirements that go with this one. So we are just passing those along to you so we can prove that you have done what you need to in order to receive the money. So the first one is the stakeholder engagement and plan for use of funds. So you signed off on assurances by June 15th, all districts did in the state, saying that you would engage your stakeholders in regards to what you're going to spend the dollars on. That needs to be included. So there's a question that says, how did you do that? I can tell you districts are doing that in all different ways. Totally up to you as long as you've engaged your stakeholders. That includes your staff, that includes your parents, students, community. If you have like special education director, maybe an English language director, something like that, all of those people should be consulted and at least get the plan out to them. It doesn't mean that you have to go knocking on all of their doors or call each one of them. It just means you're giving them an opportunity to look at how you're spending the funds and give you input. So a lot of districts are also doing, they may post it on their website and they're doing a Google survey. So you'd have Google survey, you'd have it all time stamped as to date and time stamped when people responded and what those comments are. So that's question number 1. Question number 2 is your plan for safe return. That was another assurance that you signed off on by June 15th. So this one is, who did you consult before July 15th? How did it occur? And what were the outcomes? So if you consulted, and again, maybe you put it on your website and you received results. So really ask you to explain what it is you did with that process. And then what systems are in place for revisions? As you know, that every 6 months for the next 2 years between now and September of 2023, you have to update that plan, or more frequently if needed. So again, what's in place? Who's going to do that? What's it going to look like? That's the question that goes with that one. District URL. As a reviewer, I should be able to click on the URL and it should take me to your website and it should show me your safe plan for return. As a team, we reviewed one this morning, very clear. We clicked on it. We were able to see the document that was on their website and could see what it is they're doing. So that's what you do there. And then stakeholder engagement and plan of use of funds. That goes back up to the top one. So that one is in the wrong spot. So just FYI, those are some of the questions to start with. And there's more. As you guys know, you also signed off on 20% allocation would go for learning loss. So here's bottom line. Take your total allocation, take it times 20%, and make sure that you have 20% it's selected for allowable use number 13. Okay, it's got to be 20%. It can be more than 20%. You can do 100% if you want for learning loss. Totally up to you. And then there's various questions that go with that as far as what evidence you have, what resources you're going to use for supporting students that have missed instructional time, how those resources are going to help those historically marginalized groups. Now, I realize that when you think about that question, think about all those subgroups and how it will affect those subgroups when answering the question. So again, look at the question, be precise, answer it. The next part is, that's what I've already said. You must use 20% for learning loss. So again, I would start out that way thinking. And then here are some ideas for learning loss. And I want to share these because these are just good examples that we've heard that some districts are using. This is not an inclusive list. There's a lot more that can be used. Again, I just want to give you some ideas if you're still debating. So an instructional coach would be a great person to help support teachers, to help their instruction get better, and therefore help students achieve at a higher level. and intervention specialists to work directly with kids. High quality instructional curriculum materials, materials that meet those Nebraska standards, and that have been rated by the Clearinghouse, saying these are great resources for kids and for schools to use. Social emotional learning, that is part of learning loss. I had a conversation yesterday with a superintendent on the phone who said that was going to be her focus with a lot of the dollars, was she was adding an additional day for licensed mental health practitioner to work with her students. They can also work with staff, which is something I reminded her about. You can also do curriculum, social emotional curriculum. This superintendent indicated to me yesterday that they are really seeing some social emotional issues with kids in regards to COVID and what's happened, and maybe some of them have been affected more greatly than others. So just some good ideas to think about. Don't forget about that social emotional aspect. You can also look at additional teachers. We're going to hire another teacher because we have 28 kids in a class. We want to spread those kids out, and we want to get to better instruction for those kids. So we're going to split them up. So you could do that with a class size reduction teacher. Maybe your SPED numbers have increased, so you really need another special education teacher, or maybe your English learners could use more support and you need an additional teacher, or maybe even a para to support those. Now, I know most of you are probably thinking right now, we're in July, I can't get another SPED teacher, but we may need one. Remember, this grant goes for 3 years. So maybe if you can't get that person hired for the upcoming school year, at least for the first semester, maybe second semester, you could hire a December grad. Those are things to think about when debating how to use these. The other is intervention materials. What intervention materials would be supporting to help with learning loss? After school or before school tutoring, that is something the federal government has really pushed, is to look at additional time for kids instead of just the structure of the 7 hours when kids are in the classroom. Summer school, a lot of people have done summer school activities for kids. That's phenomenal. That definitely helps with learning loss. Another one would be additional student instructional days. So maybe instead of having 172 kid days, you've decided we're going to increase it to 175, and we want to pay our staff those extra 5 days. And that could come with this learning loss. That's more time for kids. And then I have received clarification, and I didn't have time to put it on the slide because it just came yesterday, but received some clarification from the CCSSO attorneys that we've been working with. And the question was posed about purchasing technology devices to go toward the 20% learning loss. And here was the response to that. And I think this is good to understand. As long as the cost is connected to an evidence-based initiative to address learning loss, then it should be okay. In other words, whether computers can be charged to the learning loss set aside depends on what they are being used for. If they are a component of an evidence-based initiative, then that would be allowable. So think about that. If you put in your grant under number 13 that you're going to buy iPads for all the K through 6 kids, okay, great. But what's the purpose of that? How is that going to address learning loss? It can't just be because we're going to put a device in their hands. There's more to it than that. So you're going to have to explain that in your grant in order for that to qualify in the 20% learning loss. But it is allowable. That's kind of some good news. And then the last two questions, and some of them are multi-step. So question 4 and 5 talk about anticipated outcomes. So if we do all of this, what do we expect to happen? So that's question 4. And then question 5 is truly, how did you make the decision? So what data did you use? Did you look at assessment data? Did you look at certain MAPS data? Did you look at referrals to the guidance counselor? What data specifically did you look at? Did you look at your attendance data? Be very specific about why did you come up with these as priorities? And yes, all fonts or bold font at the bottom. I know there's more questions, but you also need to realize that we have more requirements that we have to do in order to prove that this money is going to good cause for our kids. Okay, I'll turn it over to Beth.
Right. So the next tab we're going to is the staff and then equipment. So there is an instructional staff page and a non-instructional staff page, just like we've had on all of the other grants. Instructional staff page needs to be teachers. It needs to be certified staff that are actually working with students. So you may have a certified teacher that's doing coaching, but that's considered working with teachers, not working with students. So the people that go on the instructional staff page need to be certified staff actually working with students. It could be that you're doing stipends, in which case where it says see attached sheet on this example, you might put stipends, and then you'd have to say if it's the whole district or whatever. You don't have to list out names on stipends, but you will eventually, when you ask for reimbursement, you will have to give names. You'll have to upload a spreadsheet. On this page right here, we have an uploaded sheet at the bottom where it says school district XYZ staff. They might be paying a whole bunch of staff just 10% of their time. And so rather than listing them all out, they can list them on a Excel sheet and upload that. But then you still need to fill out this top section. This one says see attached sheet. It's at the elementary. They paid $525,000, 10%. So $52,500 of the grant is actually what's going towards the staff that is on that spreadsheet. So you will show your supporting documentation as an upload on this one. The other thing you need to remember is if you're paying staff, you will have to do time and efforts. If it's for stipends, it would be a blanket time and effort. If it's paying an actual counselor or something, you would list them on the non-instructional staff page, but then on NSSRS, you would list them as an F, meaning federally funded, and then the percentage that is being funded with those federal funds. So you will need to do time and effort. And if you have questions on time and effort, we're going to be doing a session at admin days that might be helpful for you to come to if you have some questions on time and effort. Because this are federal funds, you will be required to do those.
And then Beth, I would just remind everybody that if you budget dollars for staff, you need to make sure that you're budgeting dollars for benefits and it's a comparable rate. So if you have a staff member, let's say, I looked at one today that someone was hiring an instructional coach, which they had it on this page, instructional, but it should have been on non-instructional. And so the coach they were paying 50%. That means 50% of salary or a benefit should also go there. And remember, benefits is not just health insurance. Benefits is FICA. Benefits is retirement. It's all of everything that staff get.
All right. The next page is the operational equipment and capital assets tabs. The difference between the two is if the item is under $5,000, it goes on the operational equipment page. If the item has a $5,000 value or more, it goes on capital assets. Some examples of things that might go on the operational equipment page would be computers, calculators, cameras, electrostatic sprayers. Basically think of anything that has a serial number needs to go on the operational equipment page. You don't need to list textbooks. You don't need to list the things that are attached to the walls that we can't take out. But the reason they're doing this is because you need to keep an inventory of those things that are listed on the operational equipment page for 7 years. And so we want to be sure that those things that could walk off or that are small and attractive is what they call them, those are listed. The other thing is things that are in the operational equipment page will be budgeted in the 600s. If it's an op or a capital asset, it's going to be budgeted in the 700s. And you have to have prior approval for that, or you may not be prior approval, but at least approval before you submit your grant. And you're going to request a form, or the form is on their federal programs website. And I was going to post our federal programs website in the chat. You have it. And on there is a section for the ESSER, the recording from last time, the forms are there. There's a lot of information on that website. So you'll want to go there. It's also linked directly on the grant, on the capital assets page. So up here, there's the link. There is one for the non-construction projects, and there's one for construction projects. So if you're doing things like buses or vehicles or the large floor cleaners, things like that, that's going to be the non-construction. But if you're doing HVAC or remodeling or any of those types of things, that's going to be the construction project. And right on the form, it does tell you to submit it to Rhonda. And Rhonda, I don't know if you can unmute and introduce yourself quick, because I need to make sure people know who you are.
Hello, good morning. I'm Rhonda, the office associate.
Yes, and so she is manning all the capital assets requests are coming to her. And then we are meeting as a group Bryce and Steve and Tom, and there's several of us that meet weekly. Right now it's weekly, it will change to more often, to go through those capital assets requests. And then they make the decision whether they are approved, whether we need more information, or whether we can't approve them. Once that's done, then Rhonda will send you the approved form, and that form will need to be uploaded. So on this page, you can see where there's an upload at the bottom. That's where you need to upload the approved form that says that you were approved on these capital assets. That will help with auditors. That will help when it comes time for the fiscal monitoring for them to know that you did have that approval. The other thing on capital assets I wanted to be sure to point out is a lot of schools have been saying that they have hired an architectural firm to handle all the Davis-Bacon pieces. We just want to be sure that you know that that requirement still does fall on the district. So while you may have a form double checking that, you also need to check. So you'll need to check in with that firm on a weekly basis to make sure everything is going well, because that is something that when the fiscal monitoring comes out, they will be checking that. So you want to be sure that even though you've hired somebody, you still do need to follow up on that. All right. Then we're on the assurances, which you did the assurances last time, but we do want you to double check on the summary page to make sure all the assurances are checked. And then the final page, which is kind of, or the final tab, it's kind of off on the right, you can't see it, but it is the GEPA. And so this is where Dottie had talked about the GEPA statements that need to be uploaded. They need to be specific to ESSER 3. So there are some samples on our federal programs website, which I just did put the link in the chat. So if you need that link, just check the chat and it's there. There are some samples, and then you'll also find lots of other documents on there.
Okay, so let's go into some what ifs. These are questions that we receive, and I'm kind of looking through the chat as well. So it's great that we're getting additional questions, and we'll be able to answer those. I've answered a few, and I see Beth has answered quite a few too. So what if our district doesn't know how we are going to use our money? Okay, remember this is a 3-year grant. So absolutely, you may be sitting back thinking, we don't know yet. Do a placeholder with the funds and then amend the application as needed. Remember to get public comment whenever you decide what you're going to use the money for, because you could always come back and do the amendment. So, okay, we put in our application because it's due September 15th, it's in. We said we're going to spend it on number 5 and 8 and 13, and we've now decided 5 is not what we need anymore. You remember you've got 3 years, so what do? You do an amendment. Remember to get public comment. Our district can't get the equipment we said we were going to purchase. So we've said that we're going to purchase iPads to help do interventions with our kids in Title I. And all of a sudden we can't get the iPads we needed. Do an amendment. Again, remember to get public comment. You can kind of see a theme here. Amendments are allowed. Some more what ifs. Our district doesn't know if something is allowable or not. Okay, instead of just guessing, or instead of going out and buying something and then you're like, oh, what do I do now? So instead of sending all your teachers to Cancun for a vacation, you probably better check that first. So what can you do? Review the allowable uses document. That's a good start. Interpret that. Reach out to your federal programs team contact. We're here to help. We'd be happy to answer your calls. What if our district can't get the application completed in time? You have to. So please at least get an application in by September 15th. I know all of the reviewers that are online right now, which is all of us, are probably saying, oh, I don't want anybody, you know, we kind of giggle about who's going to be the last one and who's going to have to contact the school to say, it's due tonight. So be sure to work on it, get rolling on it. Something that I want to throw in that has nothing to do with this application, but I think it's worthy of mentioning. We want to make sure we get this word out to everybody. There are additional ARP dollars for homeless children and youth. So it's called ARP HCY1 funds and ARP HCY2 funds. So earlier you heard Ken introduce himself as he is the McKinney-Vento, or the homeless contact for the department, and he is. So Ken and Kirk and I are working on what does that look like and how do we get funds to districts in regards to that. So first of all, the ARP HC1 funds are a competitive grant. So people will apply for that. That application isn't out yet. We'll see what that looks like down the road. So stay tuned for more on that. We anticipate the ARP HC2 funds being released prior to the ARP HC1 funds, and that's allowable per the federal government. And we're thinking that it may just be included in the ESSA consolidated grant. So if you have had homeless kids, it will be in there. If you get a minimal amount, you can work as a consortium to get some funds for that. So just wanted to put that plug in today, just so you understand that down the road, you'll hear more about that. So then you'll be like, what are they talking about? Now you know. Okay, this next sheet is just a really, really good reminder. If you don't have this, if the bookkeeper doesn't have this taped beside her computer, I suggest you maybe blow it up into poster form. I don't care what you do, but it's important. These are the important codes that you need to know for the CARES ESSER 1, the CRRSA ESSER 2, and ARP ESSER 3, and also the period of obligation as to when you can spend those dollars. So make sure that your bookkeeper realizes that, and you realize that too. Okay, so what about resources? Where can we go for resources? Well, here's some suggestions. You could phone a friend, you can select 50-50, or you can ask the audience. Okay, just kidding. That's my bit of humor for today. I know it's bad. I think I've been around Bryce Wilson too long, for those of you that have worked with Bryce. Okay, so what do? Again, reach out to your federal programs consultant that you met today online if you hadn't met previously. Go to the NDE website main page or the federal programs page, lots of resources there. Or reach out to various NDE employees beyond your federal programs consultant. And those people, oh, I forgot, I added one tab in here. I'm gonna come back. Nope, did I go too far? Well, somewhere I thought we had a list. So, okay. Let's go ahead and we'll move forward. So we do have a list and I don't know what happened to it. We'll find it in the presentation. So just to let you know, this is a really useful resource, okay? This one is actually a ESSER fiscal monitoring checklist. So just know that as a district, every 3 years, you're audited by NDE or more frequently. So what we said to Tom Goschel, who's the person that's in charge of those audits, is help. We want to give districts a resource prior to them being audited in regards to ESSER. So if you're audited 3 years from now and it's like, oh gee, I don't remember what I did 3 years ago, we wanted to give you a heads up in regards to that. So this will take you to an actual link, and Beth can post that in the chat as well. The link for the ESSER federal monitoring checklist that you could use for all of your ESSER grants to make sure that you're following and you're in compliance. So check, keep a file, keep things so you're ready to go. So this is a copy, just a partial copy. It's a 2-page form. It's not a huge form, but it does have a lot of great information. So I would share this with your bookkeeper. I would keep it handy for yourself. Do whatever it takes in order to make sure that you're complying with what you need to do. Because when Tom does come out and he will fiscal monitor your ESSER dollars, you're going to be able to say, yeah, we do have that documentation of stakeholder input. Let me show you our Google survey. And he's going to go check. Yep, they've got it. Yes, we do have a copy of our website that shows we posted it. And some district people have said, well, geez, how do we date it? I don't know if it's possible to date it. So if you date it up in the top right-hand corner with a signature, at least that, or a signature and maybe date, that would be valuable. Okay, and there's my contacts page. So it kind of got out of place. Sorry about that. Those are people who can help you if you're trying to figure out, geez, what do I do with my with reimbursement? I'm confused on what I need to turn in. You could reach out to Steve Bowers. I have questions about capital assets approval. Again, that's our Rhonda and our team. So just a variety of people that can help you at NDE. And you can see that it's first name, last name at nebraska.gov is their email. And then here's all of our contact information. So we all do have work mobile numbers. We are still working from home. So if you have any questions at any time, reach out via email, reach out via our mobile numbers. We answer unless we're on a call with someone else or on a Zoom meeting. We do a lot of Zoom meetings and we don't mind. We want to help. We would much rather help you as you're working on the grant than have to turn around and send the grant back to you. So feel free to reach out at any time. And then I'll turn it over to Beth.
And I just want to say, if you leave a message, it's common that I will forward the message to someone else to get back to you on, because I seem to be getting a lot of calls that I'm not able to get them all called back. Same with some emails. You may send me an email and I may forward it to someone else to respond if it's something that I don't specifically need to respond to. So we will get back to you somehow though. All right, I wanted to let you know about some upcoming events at NDE and Administrator Days on Wednesday, the 28th. There is going to be an entire strand on the different topics on ESSER 3. So if you need to know more about any of the different strands, there's lots of information that's going to be there. Also, we will be there in the Ruby Room, one of the Ruby Rooms, upstairs on the second floor, both Wednesday and Thursday. The federal programs team will have a room manned all day long. So if you have specific questions, we can try to help you. If you have questions on your grant, we'll be able to help you. So we'll be there both days, and we have the room covered for sure on Wednesday. On Thursday, it may just be a couple of us that are there. So we will be there as much as we can. We're planning to be there all day long. So, and then there's also going to be 2 sessions, one on GMS. So if you're a new SUP and you're not real familiar with GMS, Dottie Kirk and I will be doing a session on GMS, how to get around it, how to add staff, how to remove staff that are no longer with your district, how to complete grants, how to do reimbursement requests. So it's just a lot of just very general information on GMS. So if you are new, that might be a session you want to go to. Also, Dottie and I will be doing a session on time and effort, and Tom Geschel should be there also. So we will be able to answer a lot of questions on time and effort and give you a lot of information if that's something that you are not real familiar on. All right, and then we just want to be sure to thank you. This has been a lot of extra work. That when these ESSER grants came out, we thought, oh, 1 grant, no problem. It's turned into be a lot. So it's a lot for you, it's a lot for us, and we just want to thank you for your patience. We know that we aren't necessarily getting back to you immediately. We're doing the best we can. But we just want to thank you and know that we're here to help you. If you have any questions, we just want to be sure that you reach out to us. So don't hesitate to do that. And then we are going to open it up for some questions.